Hello and welcome to the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. This is your regular update for all your tillage news and advice. Grassweed control has become more important on all tillage farms in recent years. It's estimated that over 80% of tillage land has a population of wild oats. So controlling these wild oats is becoming even more challenging now with the emergence of herbicide resistance in small numbers of populations around the country. However, it's also worrying that these populations are scattered across a number of counties. The increase in other problematic weeds such as sterile brome and canary grass have added to the farm challenges. Farmer interest in non-plough based establishment systems is increasing year on year. However, converting to these systems takes quite a bit of learning by the farmer. The Teagasc ECT project has been working with a number of farmers across the country who are looking at these different establishment systems. The recent ECT webinar caught up with a number of these farmers who have converted to non-plough based systems, and the questions and answer session is worth listening to again. The first of these question and answer sessions, Kieran Collins, a Teagasc specialist in Cork who chaired this session, was joined by Jamie Staples, the ECT project advisor, and John Pettit, a tillage advisor in Wexford, and also Simon Neville, a farmer from Wexford. Kieran first asked Jimmy to explain a little about the ECT focus farms and what we are learning from these focus farms so far.
Yeah, so we have a network of 10 focus farms sort of geographically spread right across the country. So going from Mallow up to Ardee and Louth and down to Wexford. So the 10 of them would be, I suppose, they'd have their own establishment system. We've everything from plough all the way over to direct drill and no-till within those 10 farmers, and each of them would have their own different grassweed challenges as well. So we talk about the 4 key grassweeds we're looking at within the project would be sterile brome, wild oats, blackgrass and canary grass, and there will be other grassweeds in those farms as well. So what each of the farmers has is sort of pinpointed a specific field on the farm where they have a particular problem, and what we're doing is working with them to try and come up with solutions to try and solve that problem and reduce the grassweed challenge on the farm. And we're using those as a platform to demonstrate how you can go about implementing effective grassweed control in all these different types of systems.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Jimmy, for that kind of useful summary there for people that mightn't be familiar with the project. Simon, if I can maybe start with you. Obviously, you gave up ploughing about 10 years ago, and you spoke in the video there about some of your main grassweed issues there. Canary grass feature quite a bit, and brome. But just in terms of your cultivation system, maybe what depth are you cultivating to? And just the second one that just struck me, you made a decision to change your drill, or what prompted that, or what system has worked best for you, Simon?
I suppose the reason we changed the drill was probably TAMS, just to cut it short, Kieran. Okay. But sure, we change, we go deep if we have to, as deep and as light as possible, really.
Yes.
To cover ground. Like we could go down 8, 10, 12 inches maybe for a problem area with compaction or being damaged by trailers or with harvest, whatever.
Okay, so you're varying the depth of cultivation depending on the situation that you find yourself in, really. I suppose that's the...
Well, that's true, and soil type too, like around at home here would be very sandy and loose, so there's no real need to go for a big depth. Like we get 2 or 3 inches of soil and cover very easily. Whereas we go to heavier soil, we'll probably have to go deeper to try and break it up, like to get a bit of drainage and cover as well, I suppose, or mixing trash, like where we'd have a bit of an issue. You don't like too much trash left on land for winter crops. We find like the crows are on it the whole time. I don't know if they're after slugs or seeds or what they're after, but you seem to have bare patches where you let the trash anyhow.
Okay. So you're adapting the system. Sorry, Simon. Yeah, you're adapting your system to suit the conditions, as you say, and soil type is the...
on the day, yes.
Yeah. Jimmy, I suppose canary grass was one that you mentioned quite a bit, and Simon and John there in the video. I suppose it's a weed that I suppose so it's regarded sometimes as not a problem because we are getting good control, but how much do we really know about canary grass? I would always have perceived it as being a spring germinator, but I know from what you're finding in the project, it quite a bit of it germinates in the autumn as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing on the farm here. I suppose we don't know a huge amount about it. Like there's not a huge amount of research done in our climate or even done in the UK on it, as it doesn't seem to be a big problem over there. So we're sort of limited enough, really. It's what we know about is probably coming from a farm in a lot of respects. So we have it. There's a couple of the farmers in the project who have a touch of it, Simon and another farm in Kildare. And what I'm seeing when I'm on the farms, canary grass is always germinate in the autumn as well. Now I couldn't give you say, look, 50% of it germinate in the autumn and 50% of it germinate in the spring. I couldn't tell you that, for instance. But what I'm seeing is a very staggered germination pattern. Even just looking at what happened in Simon's this year, it was germinating early April and even into late April. And some people would say, even if you're growing spring barley, a lot of people are a little bit wary of when to put on a wild oat spray because they're afraid they're going to miss a flush of it a little bit later in the season. So it has seems to have a very staggered and protected germination pattern. We don't know a huge amount about its competitiveness, the amount of seed it produces and things like that. And through the ECT project, my colleagues VJ and David, who are doing trial work up in Oak Park, are doing a lot of work on that at the moment to try and understand it a bit more so that we can start to come up with solutions to the challenge that it presents.
Okay, and like we do obviously have some degree of resistance to wild oats with some of our main wild oat herbicides. Any indications, Jimmy, of resistance with canary grass?
Not currently. I haven't come across it myself here in Ireland, but if you look at some of the research that's been done now, a lot of this has been done over in the likes of India and Pakistan, where it's a problem in wheat rice rotations, but there is reports of resistance in those places. So it's not, the possibility is there, I suppose. And like I said in the video, that's where we potentially have that issue. Like we're very, very reliant, particularly on continuous spring barley rotations, on Axial or Axial Pro to control this. And if we do have resistance developing, that's where you start to worry when you're so heavily reliant on one single active.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. And John Pettit, John, if I can come to you, I suppose one thing that you highlighted there in the video was the diverse rotation now that Simon has on his farm. And I suppose, rotation is obviously one of the key areas in overcoming some of these grassweed challenges. But I suppose, John, from your perspective as an advisor, is this more profitable for growers, or what have you noticed in terms of people who have, we'll say, a broader, more diverse rotation now?
I suppose, Kieran, if you're to look at Simon's farm, like there's a mixture of soil types, like ranging from light sandy soils to some very heavy soils on the farm. So, like the addition of crops such as winter wheat, beans, spring beans, and winter oilseed rape, right? They're better suited. Those crops are better suited to heavier soil types, more so than say your typical spring barley is grown in County Wexford. And I suppose if you look at over the last 4 years between 2017 and 2020, if you look at what those crops have actually brought to the bottom line on the farm from a financial perspective, in 2020, oilseed rape was the most profitable crop on the farm. In 2017 and 2018, winter wheat was the most profitable crop on the farm. And in 2019 and 2020, spring beans were actually the third most profitable crop on the farm in both years. So
yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, in other words, that diverse rotation is helping the overall profitability at that rate. Simon, I have to come back to you on that one in terms of, I suppose, labor efficiency. Have you found now, we'll say, in terms of you're more labor efficient now than you would have been when you were, say, predominantly spring cropping?
Oh, it would be, Kieran. Yeah, the workload is spread much better. Like, well, in one sense, you're better anyhow. Yeah, you would be better.
Yeah, okay. And you have obviously the mix of winter and spring, which is allowing you to spread your.
Well, that's true. Spread the harvest, spread the risk to an extent as well. Like,
yeah, very good.
It's often a problem to get winter crops in or okay.
Yeah.
Like in 19, we had a fierce problem. Like we literally got none in.
Yeah.
With all great plans, but nothing happened. The weather blocked it off.
Yeah. The best laid plans, the weather can scupper them, obviously. But
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. And just in terms of, I suppose Jimmy mentioned in terms of resistance there, like we'll say, obviously the fact that you've beans and rape in the system now, it is offering you alternatives or alternative ways of controlling grass weeds, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. And rye as well is actually a help too, like because you can use broadway star for some of them things as well, like for bromes, etc.
Okay.
Wild oats, hopefully.
In the final questions and answer section, the panel was joined by Kieran Hickey, a tillage advisor from Wexford. Kieran Collins asked Kieran Hickey about wild oats spreading in fields and are the patches getting bigger year on year?
No, luckily enough now, they seem to have stayed pretty much in the areas where they were detected. That was the big fear that Simon mentioned there earlier about the how quickly the canary grass can kind of spread its way through the farm. But in fairness, the wild oats, that's really, they started out as small patches and they've got a little bit bigger. But I don't know whether it's the fact that the lads have become more aware of them or they just naturally stay in those areas, but they haven't spread over the whole farm. That's one good thing. But within the patches, you'd notice, and Jimmy might comment on this as well, in the barley, where they're not getting control, they can get very thick and they can start to take over. Whereas after a couple of applications, you know, of something that's killing them, the likes of the Broadway or Pacifica, they do tend to get thinned out. But you can nearly go back to the same place year after year and say, this is where I'm going to find my resistant wild oats.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. And Jimmy, the obvious question back to you is, how did this problem start?
Well, Garrett, as Garrett was saying there, like it's probably going on there about 10 years, but it was very, I suppose it was a very slow progress. Just over time, they started to notice that the axle just they weren't getting the same control with the axle as they had been getting. So it seems, it actually looks like the resistance actually just developed on the farm over a very extended period of time, and gradually, it became to the stage where they were getting no control with the Axle Pro, or the Axle as it was, I suppose, then.
Okay. I just want to get, maybe I might throw this one to you, John Pettit, just from the Q&A there. There's kind of two questions in one here in relation to what do the panel think about, say, conservation agriculture techniques, or even min-till as specified in the question here, in heavy land. Is this possible, John, or what's your opinion on it?
It is, Kieran, but I suppose min-till is you can use it on any soil type really, but I suppose you have to break it down into two different crop types, the spring and winter crops, and in both cases it's about managing moisture. So in the autumn time, you're looking to keep moisture away from seed and the developing seedling to let it establish appropriately over the autumn time. So a plough is going to be very forgiving in that situation. You're going to have 8 inches of freely drained soil, the plough is cultivated itself, and this water will readily get away from a plant or seed. In the case of min-till, soil is more consolidated, so it's not as altogether free draining as a plough-based system. And you'll notice as well when you go in if you're spraying on a field that's been ploughed, it's inclined to be looser, for that reason as well. But then I suppose the next step is strip till or min-till. In the case of strip till, you just have a slot cut in the ground, and if you've got heavy soil type, water, if you've got a lot of rainfall, water is going to come back up at the developing seedling and have an impact on establishment then thereafter. I suppose, like from a spring perspective, there's more potential for min-till in a spring perspective than what there is in the autumn, because in the springtime you're looking to retain moisture, right? And a min-till system will enable you to do that better than what you would do with a plough as such. So I think you have to, first of all, if you're looking at given systems, what may suit you, you have to look at what you're actually growing. Is it a spring or winter crop? And the answer in either case will differ. But again, Kieran, I suppose the main point is, like we hear about strip till, min-till and whatnot. For a guy that's growing 250, 300 acres of cereals, let that be spring, a combination of winter, spring, or all winter, all spring, there's no reason why a guy can't establish all that on a plough-based system. And a plough-based system will offer you so much more in terms of grassweed control. The only reason why an individual should look to moving towards, say, an alternative establishment system will purely come down to workload and getting overwork.
Okay, thanks, John. Simon, I might go to you as a practitioner on the panel here in terms of what you have found. You're obviously happy with the system that you have at the moment. And I suppose sometimes people will talk about maybe the conversion from a plough-based to, say, min-till maybe initially and further on from there. How did you find that on your farm?
I found it relatively straightforward, because when I was ploughing, I had sandy soil at home here, it was too loose and too soft to do anything with. When we went to min-till, you had a much firmer seed bed. like with no erosion, with wind or sandstorms, well, little or none. Whereas with ploughing, like it was unreal. You could cover the hedges sometimes, like with a sandstorm.
Yeah.
So like the main till definitely helped that one. And as for the heavy land, like drainage, I think it's nearly better with grubbing than ploughing. Like it tends to slump back down when you plough it, like, whereas when you mix trash and stuff up in it, the soil holds itself better, I think. When you plough it, like, it just kind of just slumps down. Now it can happen with grubbing too, like.
Of course.
So, but that's what I found, like, yeah.
You found that you have a better soil structure essentially as a result.
Oh God, yes, unbelievable, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely sand, anyway, yeah. And with heavier land seems to get maybe drier, for the want of a better description.
Understand.
And better drainage in it, like.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Simon. No, very useful. Lads, there's two questions again. I'm going to put together in one, and Jimmy, I'll put this one in your direction in relation to, I suppose, the sources of some of these grass weeds. I know we've seen in the two videos, particularly the likes of brome, obviously, and the management of brome coming from headlands. But I suppose this question really asks in terms of seed, you know, are some of these issues coming in maybe imported seed or home safe seed? We obviously know that there's a very strong certification system here run by the department, which is excellent. But have you found maybe that seed has been some of the sources, Jimmy, in some of the farms?
You couldn't say 100%. Like a lot of these problems were there before I got in there, so I don't know for sure. I didn't see 100% for myself that some of these problems came in the seed, but that's not to say they didn't. I suppose, like you say, the seed certification here in Ireland is world class. Really, like we've zero tolerance for most of the grass weeds, whether it be wild oats, blackgrass, or brome. So, and it's very unusual for any of those crops to be certified if there's any of those problems in them. I think maybe part of the problem might be when you're importing seed from the UK, particularly red label seed. If you look at the guidelines, there is a tolerance in those seeds, in those crops for grass weeds. So they can't guarantee that they're 100% grass weed free unless you're to go and get them independently tested. So it's just something to be very aware of. When it comes to home saving, you would hope at this stage that most people, they realize when they're home saving seed, they need to be picking at fields that are very, very clean from grass weeds, because as Garrett said himself, like, you just need to be very careful where you're home saving from, because the potential to spread problems across the farm is there. Like.
Yeah, okay. So the message there is you have to know your source, and certified obviously is best from what you're finding.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, that's fine. I suppose again on the spread of weeds, really, Kieran Hickey, I might come to you on this one. I suppose it has been mentioned in some of the videos in relation to machinery hygiene and the importance of, you know, leaving a weed problem in the field that it's in. Kieran, you might just elaborate on that and maybe some of the issues that you've seen in your area.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand where a baler went into a field and there was actually, in this case, there was canary grass in the field, and the baler managed to pick up the canary grass in the field. Then it traveled to another field, and like it didn't seem to be a huge amount of debris in the baler, as in the baler was, you know, kind of cleaned down, not too bad. But I think, as Jimmy alluded to there as well, these are very small seeds and they seem to filter their way down through the baler. And what we noticed was where they germinated, it was where the baler stopped, the bale chucked out the back, gave the baler a shake, and they ended up with these small little patches that were starting to appear in fields. And this is the big thing about the detection. And I think Simon illuminated to it as well, that, you know, you see this small little thing in the field and it looks very harmless, like it's only starts off very small, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have this problem on the farm. So I think identification is key. But if you can stop it coming in, like I've seen a few people now, and they're rigging up air lines from tractors or air lines from accumulators on machines, or in one case, a person has put a box on the side of the baler where he carries around a leaf blower. You can get them in a battery format now as well. And they're just blowing down the machine as they leave from one area to the next. And it's really, really important because the balers, like particularly with big square balers, very big machines, very big price tag, they have to cover big areas. So if you think about a square baler, it's covering parishes, not farms. So, you know, the potential for these to spread around multiple farms and to be sieving out these grass weeds and bringing them. So I think cleaning them down is so, so important, because, you know, as Jimmy has said there, we're not dealing with one grass weed anymore. There's a menu of them there now, and they're all really expensive to control and can really dominate. Like, really, you're farming away, and next thing you have the problem, and you have to farm around this new problem. So it's a big, big change in the way you do things. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. And Simon, I might come to you on that one. Like, what has kind of worked well for you on your farm in terms of practicalities of cleaning down machinery or stopping, obviously, the spread from field to field of grassweed issues?
Well, we kind of try to finish up maybe with the dirtier field, like here, if that was possible. And as the leaf blower is used as well, maybe to blow it down. Then there's always the issue of time. Like, if it's a real fine day and it's rain tomorrow, you tend to rush on to the next field, and that's it. Like, human nature. It's hard to sit on the headland trying to clean out a machine. It's not very practical cleaning out a combine. I find, like, you know, it's a day's work, and there'll still be seeds left in her. They're not easy clean. Or I've seen it come in balers, problems come in balers too, everywhere the bale dropped, the first bale dropped, like, I've seen a problem. And maybe so on, second, third bale, whatever. Definitely an issue with balers, more so to combines maybe.
Yeah, so maybe balers is the big issue, to get them cleaned down or kick out the last bale, leave it in the field before you go on to the next field.
I don't know what to say. Yes, it must be. Yeah, it must be.
Okay. Jimmy, I'm going to go back to you, and I know we're going to cover this one in the next webinar as well, but both in relation to resistance. I suppose one question here from Ali is about he's noticed poor performance of Pacifica this year. I'm not sure in relation to what weed. I'm assuming it's probably brome there. And also there's another question in relation to is the resistance in both the winter and spring wild oat?
Just in relation to the herbicides, I have been in crops this year where I have seen less than satisfactory results with using ALS herbicides, like Broadway Star and like Pacifica Plus. But I think it's more of a year effect, because I've come across other people have said the same thing, and then I've come across other people said they got very good control with those products as well. The areas where I've seen poor control is where you've had really, really heavy infestations. So that's, but I don't believe it's resistance. I think it's more of a year effect. I think it was just, everybody knows, like, April was a very difficult year or even late March, very difficult year for getting spraying done. In relation to the resistant wild oats, the samples we've tested have all been spring germinating wild oats. If you go to the UK, they actually find that there's more resistance in the winter germinating wild oat. So resistance can be in both. So far, what we have found has been spring in Ireland, spring germinating wild oats are what we're finding to be resistant in Ireland so far. And the level of winter wild oats in Ireland is questionable as well. Like, we really don't know for sure how much winter wild oat there is in this country. We've never done any survey work on it, so we're not.
Okay, no, that was going to be my next question. And just you are testing the likes of Pacifica and those actives in terms of resistance as well. That's part of the.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So wild oats, any of the wild oats we tested, as well as the likes of your Falcon and your Stratus and your Active, they've also been tested to the likes of Pacifica and those type of products, and we found no resistance in wild oats to any of those ALS herbicides. Worryingly enough, we have come across a number of populations of sterile brome that are showing increased intolerance to the likes of your Pacifica Plus and your Broadway Star, particularly at half rates, which is worrying.
Okay. And Jimmy, while you're on there, and I know it's the big topic for the next webinar is blackgrass, but just to maybe have a few comments on it there. The person asked here, how much of a problem is blackgrass? And this person is hearing of heavy infestations in the northeast. Now, I know the next webinar is from the northeast, but you might maybe just have a few words on it.
I'm very concerned about the level of blackgrass in the country. I think we're only sort of seeing the tip of the iceberg at the moment. I filled an awful lot of phone calls last week, just in relation to people finding blackgrass, and I think it's hard to get a gauge on it, because you ring around, you talk to merchants, you talk to farmers, you talk to the advisors in Teagasc, and a lot of people are probably, not that they're burying their head in the sand, but either they don't realize they have it or they don't want to admit they have it, which is part of the problem in trying to identify how much of it is actually in this country. I think there's more of it in the country that they're aware of, and when it comes, there is a problem in the northeast with it. It's definitely probably, of all the regions of this country, the northeast is probably the most heavily infected, from what I can gather, hearing what I'm hearing and seeing the figures I've seen.
So that's it for the Tillage Edge, and my thanks to Kieran Collins and all the panel. The full webinar with excellent footage of farms can be viewed on the Teagasc Crops YouTube channel. Just Google it and you'll find it there. The next in this series of ECT webinars is on June the 22nd from the Northeast, with a focus on blackgrass and brome. And the final one is on July the 6th from Cork, with a focus on sterile brome, blackgrass and ryegrass. All events will start at 11:30 a.m. As I mentioned over the past number of weeks, the Oak Park Open Day will take place on June the 30th and July the 1st. You can only attend by booking first, and details of how to do this are on the Teagasc website. And for all of these events, check out teagasc.ie/events. So finally, don't forget, if you like this podcast, then recommend it to a friend or colleague. And as always, rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy. Thanks for listening. I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.